Alright, hello everybody. It is I'm So Cutie. I'm back after a little break. I was celebrating my birthday and it is also the second to last week of school, so I was just a little bit busier. But we hit the craziest weekend in Disney Lorcana. I believe that this set has been the most jam-packed set in terms of events. We had SSG, CCS, we've had CCQs pop out of nowhere, we've had two PPGs, we've had Stockholm, we're going to have Bologna, and then we're going to have Milwaukee, we have Glass City, we have all these events happening countrywide all the time. The meta is developing so fast. I unfortunately did not get to play at Lone Star as I wanted to this past weekend, but I did put in practice, I did watch, and I'm getting ready for set champs, and I'm taking them semi-seriously, as seriously as I can take locals, in order to practice for DLC Milwaukee. But I believe we are in the final stretch of the meta. I believe we are hitting probably the peak of a lot of decks. If anything, there's just going to be a couple account changes and maybe techs. But let's get right into it. Yeah, let's break this thing down. So we are super dominated this weekend by the Dogs, by Purple Steel, and by Blurple. So these decks just went absolutely crazy all weekend long. We had a crazy event that I actually didn't get to highlight in this one. I believe it was like a 300 player CCQ out in Europe that actually saw Blurple win. So that is one list that I don't think I had on Ink decks, but I did include things that I'll look at beyond. But yeah, we saw these decks just absolutely wipe, and what we did not see at all was Tiana. So this was actually semi-surprising for me. There is a lot of people that really enjoy this deck and have continued to play this deck after Sky's win in PPG 15K of Denver. The thing is, people are teching, and the winning lists are teching more under the sea. They're teching more heads held high. They're teching bigger bodies like Baymax and Scrooge. They're teching cannons at 2, cannons at 3. Strength is playing every single time. People are at 4 Pete now. People are at 2 Pete now. And people are on Mim Skater. I mean, Mim Skater is the card that allows you to produce 4, and I'll get a little bit into that later. I have seen Amber Steel top cut a lot of these events, but again, once the lists are open in Top Cut, Amber Steel is just not able to clinch out games, and it is not as dominant as all the other decks. We have seen Green Blue beat it. We have seen Blurple beat it. We have seen Purple Steel beat it, and the fact that it can get beaten by some of the top decks is just very discouraging. But I do still believe that this is people's pet decks, and I do still believe that people will be playing it in a high volume because it is still good when it high rolls. But the thing is, there is a lot of answers in the meta right now. Continuing, so this is actually going to be the first list that we're looking at. We're looking at Purple Steel, and I'm going to put them back to back, so I do have them back to back. I believe this one was either 90 players, and then this one was the 128 players. So this one first, we are seeing the split between Dumbo and Yzma in every single Purple Steel list that is top cutting like very well. The only exception was for the Lone Star 8th place. I believe Baxter had played a Diggy aggro list, but again, when lists are open, decks are completely disassembled, right? When lists are open and people know exactly how you approach the on the play and on the draw just by looking at your list, that is when things change drastically. And again, this is why I'm only highlighting the first place finishes, because the first place finishes are people who created a consistent deck to play all the way through Swiss and then play all the way through an open list top cut. So again, that's what I'm doing, right? So again, we're looking at overstated characters like Vanish. We're looking at 3s all across the board, right? And the thing that I really like about these Purple Steel lists is the addition of Madam Mim. So when I played Purple Steel, and I've been playing it very extensively recently, trying to really learn it. The biggest problem is you're unable to produce 4 damage, right? So producing 4 damage is probably one of the biggest hindrances in this deck. You are never able to produce 4, and your inability to produce 4 leaves damage on the board, leaves things to trade unreasonably going the other way, so your opponent gets to take advantage of damage that's sticking. So like if I hit your Daisy for 3, right? and there's 3 damage on it because my Captain Hook couldn't fully finish it. Now the Bobby can take Captain Hook, live, and the Daisy can still quest, and now there's 2 things that technically still need 2 more challenges. So I'm losing a total of like 3 cards on the board simply because of my inability to produce 4 damage. So Madam Mim is absolutely crazy, right? Again, if people are able to answer your Dumbo, or you're just not opening evasives, opting for the Yzma is the same thing, and it is crazy, right? Because you're also playing Doc. You're playing the Doc, Yzma, and Dumbo. I didn't include the Doc here because it's not a competing slot, and it's always the complementary like draw engine. But the complementing spot right here is just crazy, and it's a really big skill expression, knowing what you're gonna opt into and knowing when you're supposed to go for what. Playing the Yzma and then playing the Dumbo and then proccing Yzma and then taking the Dumbo draw is just crazy. You get like 4 or 5 cards on the turn if you do it correctly. So yeah, Purple Steel, both of them exhibited the same thing. This one actually bumped Madam Mim Skater up 1 more. So it is super interesting to see. This one actually had Hypnotic, which I do enjoy. It probably did better to the Vanish counterparts and things like Iago and just finishing damage, right? Like if there's a time where, like, again, producing 4 becomes really difficult, things like Palace Guard, Hook, or even Diablo can sneak in trades. So I do actually like Hypnotic a lot in Purple Steel list. But again, it is super good. This one actually did not see Pete either. So again, that is super interesting to see. He definitely had to turn it up a little bit more. Probably the reason why his count on rows is just a little bit higher and just a little bit more solid on the bottom. Compared to this one is a lot top heavy. It's a lot more top heavy, right? So there's a lot more like combos and turns that he has to account for. So again, depending on the build you needed to see, these 2 decks run completely differently, but they're using the same cards to like the same card core of drawing and amping damage to fill the weakness of the deck. So that's just super good takeaway, right? And now we're going to be highlighting the 2 green blues. They're actually pretty similar to each other. One runs Ben, one doesn't, and then it's for the trade-off of the Under the Sea. Actually, no, what is he? The Hades, I think, actually. Yeah, the one Hades split. But what we're seeing is green blue actually play Develop and Bobby at bigger counts. This wasn't a thing for a little bit. It was a little bit more reliant on Develop or on Visions, right? But the reason that this is so huge is that with winning list having this, and you find space to even bump it to a 4/4, you now present the idea that Bobby can shift, right, for Baymax, because Baymax is back in these lists after being out last weekend. We did not see a lot of Baymax in lists. And with Develop, you now present a way more sustainable hand into other blue matchups. So your matchup spread becomes infinitely more consistent just because of having Develop. Me personally, I also posted a list for green blue, and I actually do believe I put Develop in there because I do understand the benefit that Develop plays in blue mirrors, and it's the same reason why Develop is played by people like Edmund Chu, DKP, huge players in mirrors for Blurple. Like, that is why you play Develop, for really long sustaining games. And having the split and having a deck healthy enough to sustain the split is just so crazy. Green blue will become more and more consistent into matchups. I've also seen heads get pumped up to 4 in some lists that top cutted. Obviously not the winning list, so maybe 3 is a sweet number, but I do think it's going to be 4/4 eventually. But again, Develop is a huge thing to start seeing in green blue with Bobby. The deck is just going to become a lot more consistent in the curve, and it's all its matchups, right? Like, you don't need to keep this sometimes, or if you get stripped by Ursula or whatever, now you have Develops way more consistently to just like tag it, right? So I do enjoy this a lot. I do think green blue is the closest to reaching its peak potential in terms of card accessibility, but I'm very excited to see how it does, and I do think it is a very big contender in the DLC because it has a very it's kind of like Purple Steel. I believe it has pretty 50-50s into all matchups as long as the draws are there, right? Again, this is one of my favorites, and honestly probably my top pick for this DLC, the upcoming DLCs in Bologna, and I don't think I'm saying baloney, right, bro? But for Bologna and Milwaukee, I do believe that this is going to be a crazy deck that if it sneaks into the top cut in open lists, this deck can become pretty insane, especially lists that run Scrump over some of these other card choices. I think this deck is probably a contender for winning it all. I think that a crazy player on this deck can adapt it enough with the cards in the deck already to play really differently to beat almost every matchup. It's pretty gross. I think Scrump Edition is just really gross. Obviously, it doesn't replace itself and it doesn't play to the board, which is it's understandable why some people do not play it and do not like it. It's a little bit more high roll in the conditions to be met, but it is really good. Again, I've seen this Murpho Chromicon thing go off. It is nasty. It is very, very nasty. I think Chromicon is going to be... it still continues to be insane, and there continues to be no real answer. Like, people do not play Benja. People do not play Cusco. People do not play Wasabi. People do not play Find and Flatinum. People do not play item removal in this meta, which is good. Because if you play item removal in this meta, you're severely punished by losing that slot to be anything else, with the off chance of 1 in 1,000 to hit the Emerald Chromicon player. But the thing is, when Emerald Chromicon hits the board, it is actually incredibly oppressive, especially in a deck like this that requires so much challenging to be happening. And then things on the top end that just punish the idea that if you do not, like, I'm going to be able to set up even more, right? The deck that this technically struggles to the most is green-blue. That is why I think green-blue has a really good chance at sneaking into the top cut as well of DLCs. But these are my two picks of the decks that I definitely want to see just absolutely crush it in the DLC. And hopefully I will be on one of them. Finally, we do have Blurple. So again, Blurple is a deck that we have seen develop throughout the start of the meta. It is nothing new, right? But we are seeing greedier and heavier splits in the 1-drop. So the thing that Blurple struggles with a lot was either you go into the build that does very good into the mirror, which is the develop Basil lines, but then you kind of give up the presence on the board with earlier decks, right? But people are playing it now so that you can have all three. The 3-3 split was already super common, but you never played the develop. But now if you sneak in the develop, as long as you mulligan pretty correctly, even if you find it after the sale or before the sale, you are in such a position now to sustain the hand through grind your mirror, right? And again, develop in the late game is basically pay 1, make this card another card. Second star is just crazy. I don't like that Visions is actually a 2. I do dislike that of this list, but obviously this player was really good. I believe this CCQ was 170. I believe it was actually more than 128. It might have been like 200 actually. This might be the guy that the Mexican dude. No, this is like French. The Mexican dude was DKP student. He did really good at a 370 player event. I believe his list was not this split, so I should have looked that up. But I believe this one was still like 100 plus, like a lot. So yeah, again, we do see these splits, we see sustainability, and that's just a super key takeaway to these top cutting lists. The thing is, some players can't make the decision between, you know, going in on it, right, like this, or going in on this, and they kind of just choose one or the other, and then their ability to perform consistently in blind Swiss is just diminished a lot. So people like this that play blind Swiss at big tournaments and then win are usually really big influences on the list we'll continue to see. That is why I only really focus on the first place finishes, because that is a player that understands his deck and developed their deck enough to be absolutely consistent for the matchup spread to become 50-50 all the way through, or 70-40s, 70-30s and such like. So takeaways, deck consistency is growing exponentially, right? Smarter splits for favorite Swiss performance. Blind Swiss is just so much different than top cut. When you make a deck that has a better matchup spread, it's to abuse the idea that when you're playing Swiss, it is blind and you do not know the colors until game 2. And the techs and things like that, like count ratios and stuff, are meant to leverage you when you're not supposed to be leveraged in game 1, right? And that's the idea of Swiss. That's the idea of Swiss in general. And then Top Cut is just how do you minimize the variance of the text in the Top Cut when you know open lists, right? That's like the biggest takeaway that we're seeing is that people are becoming better at playing Swiss, and you need to be better at playing Swiss because you will not make Top Cut, right? So outstanding cards that we continue to see are Yzma. Yzma really died down in popularity when Dumbo started going into the list and like Treasure Guardian and stuff, but I believe that Yzma is crazy. I practiced a lot with Yzma. I did a 4-2 split, and yeah, Yzma was just nuts. I do enjoy the 4-4 a lot. The idea of it. I haven't practiced the 4-4, but I did practice 4-2. Mim Skater is just amazing. Again, producing 4 is the biggest thing ever. Cannons will continue to find itself in almost every steel deck. Even at 2 is just nuts. Like, imagine pocketing it. Like, imagine pocketing the 2 and you have such a healthy hand. It's just like, okay, if there's something that really threatens me, bam, it's gone, right? Chromacon, again, is just something that you can't really tech for, but the existence of it in general is just insane, and it continues to grow, right? And then Amber Steel has been top cutting pretty consistently, I guess. I do see it like 1 or 2 in most of like the major events, especially like Lone Star. This coming weekend, it was only like 70-50 players, but it did make top 8, I believe, both days. I think 1 and 2. I think 2 the first day and then 1 the second day. But open list in Top Cut just always seems to make it perform really poorly. So it definitely is a gimmick thing. Like, if you can mulligan for that deck where you need like specific outs, it looks like it becomes like 30-70s in favor to the opponent, right? But in Blind Swiss, again, because obviously the players made it to the Top Cut, in Blind Swiss, it might still be a very good deck, right? Because you cannot always mulligan for the Tiana or the Tiana outs, because that's a very demanding hand, and in Blind, you just can't really do it. So they might take game 1 on you. You get to go on the play. You get it out, and then they just high roll the game 3, and then you lose. Well. So this is my expected DLC distribution. There are actually a lot of decks that I believe can compete. So Amber Steel, I do believe, is like a comfort pick for a lot of people, a lot of individuals, and I do believe it is still probably like a pretty good deck. I don't actually think it's in the top 4 anymore. I really don't. I do think Dogs takes it over in the top 4. Purple Steel continues to be really consistent. We didn't see a top cut at PBG, I believe. That was like the biggest major event where like it did not top cut, so that was a pretty surprising thing. But I think it got its feet back in the water, and playing the Yzma and different like archetype that's becoming a little bit more consistent is definitely helping it out. Blurple just continues to be obviously the deck to play, the deck to beat. It's definitely the Ruby Sapphire, but it is not unbeatable. I do believe that Dogs, Green Blue, and Amber Steel actually do all beat Blurple, but Blurple has like 40-60, possible 50-50s depending on hand. So in terms of possibility, I do think Blurple can beat all of them, but I do believe all of them can also beat Blurple, so it's actually pretty healthy, this distribution. I did make it pretty favored to Blurple. Blurple might be closer to like 33% of the room, but I don't think I would really change this. If anything, it'd be the other. Green Steel Artifacts is becoming popular, but I really don't think it's good. There are people who still like to play like Red Steel and stuff. I don't think that's good. There are people who like to play Ruby Amethyst Damage. I do actually think that's really good, but I don't think it's done good enough to where people would bring it to a DLC and expect to outperform. And that's why I kind of just put this very small marginal number of 4.8, just because I don't see it doing well enough in the next set champ weekends to really blow up. I do believe that this is 5 decks. This is 5 archetypes where people can choose and genuinely have a solid chance at doing very good at a DLC. I believe that it's gonna be crazy. I think this meta and the events have just been catalyst for this set to develop so much that I think we're gonna see one of the craziest and most competitive DLCs we have in the history of Lorcana, and I'm very excited to see that, and I'm very excited to perform at one of them myself. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. Sorry for the lack of content just for a little bit, but we should be on a semi-regular schedule if I can just interweave it with my school schedule. But again, thank you guys very much, and I'll see you guys in Top Cut.